So I know everybody here, but I realize you all don't know. I know you guys just met Ariel from Rutgers, APD at Rutgers, and then next to her is Shannon Moffett. She's faculty at Rutgers as well. So, and then this is Deb Brusk here, faculty at IU. So everyone's faculty at IU. Butch Humbert, he's our program director. Julie Welch, she's vice chair. What's your title?
Of awesomeness.
Of all the things.
Yeah, right. That's what I say is vice chair of awesomeness, but apparently it's not a real title. Ann Messman, you're vice chair of education at Wayne State? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, wow. I'm just kidding. No. And then Jeff Hayes, program director for the EMPs, and then Steve Whipwreck, who's APD as well. Okay, so.
Welcome to our talk. Thanks for coming. So we just want to start off by saying how this topic and this kind of talk that we're going to have today came about. So we have a concerted effort at IU to really focus in on wellness and DEIJ efforts. And what we kind of realized was that now I'm kind of working in my silo for wellness, and Dre is doing some awesome things with DEIJ in her silo. And we started to realize we can't talk about one without talking about the other. They intersect, they overlap. We have to talk more about those and use the words correctly. So intersectionality, intersection, like what do those words mean? And as you kind of get more and more into it, you realize that you have to be a concerted effort. I had this thought last night. It's like a three-legged race, like you and I walking in tandem with one leg and moving in the same direction.
I vote we do that.
Yeah, right.
We should
do that. So here's the quote that kind of says it all. We cannot engage in conversations about wellness without asking about equity, because equity and inclusion lead to wellness. If residents don't feel seen, heard, and valued for their unique perspectives, they are not well. And so just a quick, concrete example for how this was solidified for me that just kind of like showed a blind spot for me personally was that in trying to decrease barriers for residents to access mental health services, we created an opt-out counseling curriculum. So every intern that comes in is scheduled for a counseling session, and they can opt out if they choose. Well, it turns out that all of our counselors are of a same demographic, white females, and our underrepresented medicine residents did not feel comfortable seeking out a counselor that they didn't feel would understand their point of view. And that was a barrier that, in trying to remove barriers, I didn't see all the barriers. And so that just kind of was a light bulb for me, and realizing that, we need to work together to figure out where all those barriers are that we may have blind spots to.
So it's not a novel concept. So Silk Soda, one of our co-authors who couldn't be here with us last minute, was the lead author on this paper, Equity and Wellness, a call for more inclusive physician wellness efforts. And it was really written as a call to action for wellness leaders to consider equity and inclusion as part of their own work. So some of the take-home messages that she had in there are, although the wellness literature encourages a review of organizational challenges, local needs, and individual solutions, organizations may fail to align these efforts along with equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Dialogue about wellness without equity ignores the simple truth that the wellness of our minoritized physicians and faculty cannot occur without equity. It is the onus of the organization to create a space where minoritized physicians feel safe to share their insights, and not the responsibility of the physician to try to carve out a niche in an organization that is not attuned to them. And leading with equity and wellness in mind should inform decision making. Go ahead. So, before we break out into the small groups or the one large group that we're just going to have an awesome conversation about, we do need to talk about this word intersectionality. So oftentimes intersection and intersectionality are interchanged, lots of inters, but interchanged, and that's not correct. So just some basic terminology. Intersection is exactly that. You think of an intersection, two streets kind of coming together, right? It's two social characteristics coming together. So black female, able-bodied male, just them coming together. Intersectionality is a little bit deeper. Intersectionality is an understanding of the multiple inequities and disadvantages that one may have, and kind of how they compound on each other, and the obstacles they create. and kind of our blind spot of not really considering those in our conventional way of thinking about X, whatever X may be, and in this case, it's wellness. So if you think about our efforts to increase resident wellness, we all agree that that is something that is important, we need to do, right? But what about a wellness effort that, and unfortunately this is largely the case, but you have your 29-year-old white able-bodied male, and that resident is lifted up by our wellness efforts. But then you have a 45-year-old black disabled lesbian who is not being lifted up by these efforts because she is still being compounded by racism, ageism, sexism, and homophobia in her workplace, in her learning environment. Our role is to make sure both of those residents succeed. So how are we going to do that in the efforts that we have? And that's the main point of this session today, is for us to come together and start to think about those things. Now, why is that important? I mean, I'm sure you all recognize why that's important. But if we continue the way that we're going, we're going to continue to uplift our male resident, not necessarily just saying that male resident, but just as the example, but uplift that male resident while keeping that female resident here, and we're just further perpetuating oppression, right? At the same time, it's our job to lay the foundation for wellness of our residents throughout their career, not just as a resident. And so if we can't figure out a way to give them those tools now, we're just setting them up for disaster later, right? Depression, burnout, leaving our specialty, valuable people leaving our specialty early, and God forbid, suicide. So that's...
So within each wellness effort that we have, within that paradigm, where are our blind spots? And we have to have an intentional effort to look at all of these groups and make sure that we're bringing them up all equally, as Dre said. So I'm not going to have small groups. The purpose of our big group, I guess, is to start the discussion on how we can advance wellness efforts and truly encompass intersectionality. So in the groups, we're gonna pass out these questions so we can all have them at hand. Essentially, we're going to talk about these questions. So with the definitions of intersectionality and intersection, discuss how the terms relate to wellness and DEIJ efforts, and then what are our program's current wellness efforts, and then what considerations for equity and inclusion do these efforts currently make, and then share strategies or new ideas for how to be more inclusive. So basically evaluating what you currently do and what we can do better, and share ideas. And then we'll kind of continue the discussion and summarize some of the things that we've talked about so far. What we'll do is we'll compile all the stuff we talk about, and if you want a copy of it, we'll send it to you. Just give us your email address. And then we have an evaluation at the end. If you could fill that out, it would be awesome. If you could keep this wheel in mind, we'll have them kind of passed around. But if you get stuck on a certain question, keep in mind these components of wellness, so career, financial, spiritual, physical, social, family, intellectual. Just think about how those things play a role into what these questions are asking if you get stuck. And we'll leave this up to while you guys chat.